had a really good relationship with my dad, and our relationship was really based on a lot of things that we did together. We valued the time that we spent together. One thing that my dad and I really liked to do together and enjoyed doing together was fishing. And I remember one time when I was way young, about 6 or 7 years old, we went fishing out to my uncle's pond. And my dad had this sweet fishing pole. It was a brand new bait caster. And I just remember him watching him casting out, reeling in fish after fish after fish. And he comes over to me and says, "Son, I'm going to go out with your uncle here and look for mushrooms. Don't touch my pole." And I thought, at that age, in one ear, out the other. Okay, yeah, whatever, Dad, see ya. Sets the pole down, goes off. And after I can't see him anymore, I go up to the pole, and I really want to cast it out and catch fish like my dad was. So I pick it up, go to cast it, bam, tangle that thing up. And I just remember going, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." So I set it down and put it exactly where you set it. Maybe you wouldn't realize. And so I go back to using my pole fishing, and my dad comes back and goes, "Son, come here." So I walked over there. "Yeah, what's up?" "Did you touch my pole?" "Yeah, I did." So in my mind, I'm like, "Oh crap, okay. Well, maybe I can see," in my head, I'm like, maybe I can see what I can do to try and distract him, maybe make him forget that he had to give me a spanking when we got home. So, throughout the rest of the time and throughout the rest of the evening before we got home, I'm doing everything I can to brown nose him, saying, "Dad, I love you. Thanks for taking me fishing. I love you so much." We get in the car, and I'm telling him I love him, blah, blah, blah. And so, I did get a spanking that time. That wasn't the last time that he took me fishing. He took me fishing many other times after that. And I learned so many life lessons through that time that we were able to spend together. We talked about everything, anything from relationships to school, money, or where I was at in my spiritual life and where I was at with God. And I really, really cherish those times. And I think because of those moments and because of those times that we were able to spend together, it shaped me into who I am becoming today.
One of my good friends when I was a junior in high school, he was a grade ahead of me. His dad just didn't really feel good and went to his normal checkup and found out he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And basically his family took every last moment with him. 2 weeks later, he had passed away, and it was a very hard time for me to go through this with seeing one of my best friends lose their parents, and to not even imagine where I would be if I were to lose my mom and dad and the closeness I have with them. In this same time, my mom had cornered me in the garage and had kind of broke down and told me, "It's going to be okay. God has a way with everything, stay strong." But she goes, I need to talk to you. And I just didn't really see this coming at all. I knew she hadn't been feeling good. I didn't really think anything of it at this time because my mind was so wrapped around everything else going on in my life, school, work, sports, everything that could possibly, go on. And my mom didn't want to tell me this because she knew I was wrapped up in everything else, but she knew I deserved to know. And she had told me that she was being tested for cancer. And at this point, I've never had such a deafening silence in my life where everything just went numb. And I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. I didn't know how to react because I just watched one of my best friends lose her dad. And it was very hard for me to even imagine right now that my mom is now being tested for cancer, and I could very well be in the same shoes as my friend. And I waited a week to find out test results, and I remember that day I told my band teacher I was a drum major, and I told my band teacher, if my phone goes off, I am getting off the podium and I am answering it, and I'm sorry. And so we walked out to the band practice field, middle of the afternoon, and all of a sudden I felt my phone, and I looked down and I had a missed call and a voicemail. And I kind of stopped and I just stood still for a second, and I stopped directing and I got off the podium and ran around the side of the stadium and just sat down and looked at my phone. I didn't know whether to listen to it or call my mom first. I just looked at my phone and I didn't know whether to listen to my mom tell me she had cancer and deal with it, or I didn't know whether to listen to my mom tell me she didn't have cancer and to celebrate. And so I took a deep breath, I listened to my voicemail, and my mom was bawling, telling me she didn't have cancer. I'll remember this story for the rest of my life. It's made me very close with my parents. It made me realize that every moment of every day is meant to be and is meant to live life to your fullest and to just appreciate your parents and everything they do for you and everything they can possibly give you guidance for.
One of my biggest regrets from junior high is how I treated my parents. At the time, the way I disrespected my parents did not seem like a big deal, especially since it was how I saw many of my friends treating their parents. Rolling my eyes, making cutting and sassy remarks, but most of all, not being grateful for all that my parents had provided for me, or just a few ways I disrespected my parents. What I didn't realize at the time is that my parents really did have my best interests in mind. Some of my friends were making decisions really thought my parents wouldn't agree with. But now I realize that my parents were looking to see if the people I hung out with were choosing to honor God with their choices. I never did anything really bad, but there was an ongoing battle in my heart and in my conscience about what decisions I should make when it came to hanging out with my friends. Oftentimes, I just wanted to do the cool thing. Things got worse in 8th grade when I had my mom as a teacher. Part of what made this situation so difficult for me is that 20 out of the 24 students in the class were people who I considered to be close friends. I was very disrespectful to my mom in class in front of my friends. The way I rolled my eyes, ignored her requests, or made a joke at her expense in front of the class was very disrespectful, and I knew it was not right, but I continued to do it anyway. There were many days when I left the class feeling very empty inside, because I could see the pain in my mom's eyes from the way I treated her. My mom is one of the greatest women you will meet. She is very generous with her time and talents. In the time since then, we have developed a more meaningful relationship. However, our relationship was not magically restored. The summer before my 9th grade year, I attended a conference in Colorado with a group from church. This conference changed my life, and at that conference was when I truly turned my life over to Christ and realized that I wanted to faithfully live my life for Christ and not myself. I had called myself a Christian before, but the way I treated my classmates, my friends, and my family, and some of the decisions I was making was not honoring to God. It is after that summer that I realized that some of the choices my friends were making and would be making heading into high school did not align with my values or what the Bible had to say. I recognized that I needed to define my friendships and make the commitment to follow Jesus with not only what I said, but also in how I lived my life. After reflecting on my junior high years, it comes as no surprise to me that God used that summer to not only restore my life and lead me into a deeper relationship with Him, but also to help restore my relationship with my parents and particularly with my mom. As I began making decisions the rest of junior high, those decisions became more and more aligned with what my parents' values were, and they aligned with the Bible. My parents and I began to see eye to eye, and I began to take their advice to heart. Sure, we had our disagreements, but the way we talked through those disagreements and communicated still honored God. The eye-rolling eased, and with the help of my dad, I no longer made cutting remarks or jokes at my mom's expense. It was not easy to make those changes, and it took a lot of reminders and patience on the behalf of my parents to help me become a more respectful woman. Today, my mom would tell you that I really was not that bad in junior high. We have a great relationship now, but I often wonder what those years could have been like had I cherished her for the woman that she is. Take an honest look at your relationship with your parents. I would encourage you to take small steps in making that relationship with your parents even stronger. Whether you think your relationship is good enough or whether it's suffering. Appreciate your parents, respect their decisions, and thank them for their support in your life.